feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to a Wednesday night Fireside Chat edition of the Shrimp Tank. Unfortunately, my co-host Lee Heisman and myself, Ted Jenkins, were unable to be in the studio with you, bringing you some of the brightest and best entrepreneurs in and around the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia and across the United States. But this week, we really are going to have a special panel. We'll bring them on in just a few minutes because business owners out there have been asking all kinds of questions about not only how to survive during the coronavirus, but how could their business thrive, dealing anywhere from handling their employees to employees working remote to the Paycheck Protection Act and much, much more. We're happy to talk about that. As always, for those of you that have not seen the Shrimp Tank before, you can always go to iHeartRadio and you can get the show there. You can go to shrimptankpodcast.com and see the some 225 business owners that Lee and I have interviewed in the city of Atlanta. And of course, Shrimp Tank is all over the country. We're in Boca Raton, we're in Harrisburg, we're in Charleston, we're in Houston, we're in Little Rock, we're in Orange County, in Seattle, in Boston, and so many other cities around the United States, because one thing is true. Business owners are the ones that hire people here in America, and the backs of what's going to happen coming out of the unemployment crisis we're in right now, it's going to happen all from us business owners. We're the ones that are going to put people to work, and we're the ones that are going to thrive. So we're trying to put the panels together in the next few weeks. Lee and I will on these fireside chats to help you really figure out how to deal with the issues in an effective way that you're handling in your business today, and again, help you thrive on the other side of this. So we're excited to have you. Feel free, if you have questions, just put them in the chat box or in our Facebook Live, and we will answer them or have our outstanding panels of owners tonight answer that for you.
Well, speaking of outstanding panels, Ted, I'm honored to have two good friends here locally. I know we have H down there in San Francisco that you'll be introducing later, but let me introduce our two good friends who I'm gonna use the old adage, age before beauty, and knowing them as well as I do, I'm gonna turn to John Loud and start with him first.
Age.
Simply age before Tom's beauty, of course. But John Loud, who not only owns Loud Security, but if you're in Atlanta and you don't know John, then you haven't been in Atlanta very long, because in addition to him owning Loud Security, John also is the chairman, the head of the Cobb Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest chambers in the entire country. And John has his finger on the pulse, not only of his business, but also of the entire community here in Atlanta. John, if you could take a moment and you know, I love that you guys have been on panels before when people have had to do their 30 seconds or 1 minute elevator pitch. Provide a little context to our listeners of who you are and really your business wherewithal.
Well, certainly, thank you, Lee. Thank you, Ted, for setting this up and giving us the opportunity to be able to share with your listeners and viewers out there. So John Loud, Loud Security Systems. I usually have to clarify that my name is John Loud, and I did not change my last name to become Loud Security Systems. I was born Loud, but today we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year in business. We're about the 90th largest company in the security industry. Security Distributing Magazine tallies the top 100 in the U.S. Obviously, ADT is #1 across the United States. We do have customers in about 31 different states. Based out of Kennesaw, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. We've got a little over 60 employees in this area. And I guess one of our recent exciting announcements is we've got from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution identified as one of the top workforce places to be employed at. So we got an outstanding team here and love to serve the life safety, security folks in the commercial and residential space. But there's a 38-second synopsis for us, Lee.
It's well done, and congratulations. And I'm looking forward to asking you the difficult questions later because of how intimate you've been with your staff and what you've done to get where you are and what you plan to do going forward. And then on the other side of it, we talk about the beauty. We talked about age first. Now we have beauty, and that's Tom DiGregorio. Tom has had a business at, I think, revenues, Tom, in excess of $45 million, hundreds of employees at your company, and you're one of the top companies in the country regarding foundation and basement work. Tell us more about that.
Well, again, thank you to Ted and to you, Lee. It's been quite a ride here. We too are a 25-year-old company celebrating our 25-year anniversary. And our company specializes in giving back our customers their peace of mind. We specialize in fixing people's homes. It could be anything related to their basement, their crawl space. We do all forms of foundation repair, including foundation settlement, cracked and bowed walls. We also do all forms of concrete repair. We do gutters and we do roofing. So basically we've got our customers covered from the roof line down to the foundation. We are about 225 people strong at this point. And we are the largest company of our kind in the Southeast at this point, and still growing.
It's wonderful. Ted?
Well, pretty cool stuff. And we've also got on H. Joseph Ehrmann. I've finally known him for 30 years here plus as H. He's a Boston College grad, an MBA, but most importantly, he opened up and restored one of the oldest bars in San Francisco on 16th and Guerrero, right in the Mission District, an unbelievable saloon called Elixir SF. And it's an amazing place that he built. But what really I think is going to be interesting in talking to H tonight is that he is one of the most well-known mixologists in the entire United States. Recently launched a tremendous line of mixers called Fresh Victor. And I don't think there's many people in the world that know as much about spirits that H does. So we really love having the kind of panel that we have on today because you guys are in such different businesses, and we're seeing people that own businesses from valet parking to being a dentist to owning one restaurant in a strip mall to people that basically were in the trade show business and would do 100 trade shows a year. And so what we hope to share with our guests tonight is really what we're all learning going through this, because this is unprecedented what we're seeing right now as business owners. And so I guess I wanted to start off with H. I'll just ask the first question here because, being a direct elbow to elbow type business, people have to come into the bar and they get a cocktail and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, a city says, well, hey, people have to have social distancing and they're 6 feet apart. And how the heck do you pivot during a time like this when you're in that kind of consumer facing business?
Well, the biggest challenge, of course, right away was that our industry is, like you said, it's all about getting people together. And all of a sudden the government says, you can't get together. So the California ABC was pretty quick to get on it, which I'm actually surprised because the ABC is not quick to do anything. And I'm sure most ABCs anywhere in the country are not quick to do anything. They're just big bureaucratic government agencies that still live in 1934. And they did quickly say that we could, different licenses would be able to deliver and do to go and things that we were not legally permitted to prior to that. So that was the first thing that I got on top of was gift cards. It just was the first light that went off in my head was sell gift cards, start getting some cash in the door on that idea of basically loaning us money now and we'll give you the drinks later. Because I carry an $80,000 inventory. We have over 600 whiskeys. We're listed as one of the top 40 whiskey bars in America. I've got tons of booze, right? And that's capital. That's capital that's tied up on the shelf. So my first thought was liquidate everything I can to get capital. And so as I launched the gift card thing, which people jumped on, and I've got an amazing network of friends and all over the world, and people started contacting me everywhere and buying gift cards. People were buying gift cards that I know they're never going to cash in, and some of them were as much as $1,000. I only put up to like $200, I think, on the gift card thing, but people started buying a lot, and that threw several $1,000s over the first 3 or 4 days into the bank. And of course, things like this, they always happen at the worst time. It hit right when I had just paid a whole bunch of bills, and I was cash poor. Like all of a sudden this hit, I don't have any money in the bank, and there's no money coming in. And so everybody in this industry operates on really tight margins. And so I was all about, okay, we're 2 weeks to bills. I need cash flow. And so that was my first thought was, what do I do to drive cash flow? And as soon as I got the gift cards up, I just started marketing it, put it out there, get it out on social, get it out in everything I can. And then I went into the bar and I just started taking inventory. And I just said, what can I sell? How am I going to do this? I'd never run a liquor retail business before. So I just set up a spreadsheet. I went right into my inventory spreadsheet I use a system called Bartender. And Nick, the founder of Bartender, is a good friend and local and a big supporter of the bar. And I went and I just exported my data from there, and I just went in and did a flat 35% markup across everything that I could get rid of, and just started making lists. And then I thought, how am I going to get this out there? And how am I going to, I just started doing the deliveries myself, and I offered it out to my staff. I contacted all my staff and let them know they were furloughed, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I'd stay in touch. I'm going to do everything I can to keep them. And then one of my bartenders, Dan, lives a half block away. And so he and I started working on getting the delivery out. And every day it was like suddenly a whistle went and it was a sprint. It was like every day, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? What do I got to do? And that first week was a blur, and
That's
ever
amazing.
since
Well,
then,
and I think H has been a blur for everybody.
Yeah. And but it's funny. I posted something about getting pissed off because I within a week I've started seeing people saying, I'm so bored. I'm like, if you're so bored, why don't you go help somebody? Because there are people like me who are working their ass off even more. And there are people that are losing their livelihoods, losing everything they've ever built, and they could use some help. So if you've got a special skill and you're bored, use it. Go help somebody.
I was going to say, H, I wasn't sure if you can hear my teenage daughters from San Francisco. So that's what I hear every day.
Yeah.
I'm bored. Yeah. I'm bored. Let me jump in, guys, and talk about John and Tom as well. And I speak to both of you guys. I've known you for so long, and we've talked a lot during this traumatic time in our lives business-wise, but I've never heard either of you complain. And it's quite intriguing. I found to be very successful entrepreneurs are not sitting around complaining, they're taking action, such as H did. John, start with you. We've talked so much, but it's funny because we've never really even talked about our respective businesses. Now's the time, John. I'm fully listening to you to complain. What have been some of the hardships that you've run into? And Tom, that'll come to you next.
Oh, this is so easy, Lee. What are you talking about? Actually, I'll give you two quick perspectives. Okay, so I'll give you the loud security perspective, and then I'm going to give you the community aspect of things. So first off, for us, when this all started to get talked about back in January, February was our first step for actions. One thing to aside for all your listeners and viewers out there is the alarm industry, security industry, we're built based upon the recurring monthly revenue of our subscribers. So if there's ever a time when you think about an economy that goes bad and you understand you got a financial base of recurring revenue, right, Ted?
Yeah, yeah.
It is a foundation of ongoing revenue stream. Even though not every customer is going to be able to pay us down the road, businesses are closing, customers are losing jobs and getting concerned. So I'm with you. But back in February, we actually sat down realizing what was coming and said, we have a supply chain issue as our first concern. So we actually had cash flow to go out and buy thousands, 100,000 actually we did, of inventory to be able to make sure that my number one challenge to this is going to be my employee retention, is the way I was looking at it. And of course, customers are vital to that. And if I didn't have the inventory because there was some diode out of China that they shut down some city and they're not going to manufacture and it comes through Mexico or the US and gets assembled, but that effect could really come to me. I said, let me take my capital, invest in that to prepare to know that I can have my team continue to work. So we did do that piece of, I had a business continuation planning meeting back about mid-February was my first step, not realizing as it was going to become so close to us here. So today we sit here, we've got several folks working from home. Obviously we have sales reps that are using FaceTime and Skype and a just different format to be able to communicate with prospects, or even our service technicians in some cases will use a media format to be able to solve solutions that maybe we were rolling trucks before. We certainly have a fleet of vehicles that are out there servicing and installing. And look, we're in the life safety business, so it is an essential factor of businesses and homeowners. So we do have the ability to be able to still go. Let me jump quickly to leading a business organization with 2,600 businesses. It's a whole different world. I mean, there is so much the stories of what H is sharing about with all the restaurants and the devastations. One thing I will brag on, our governor was fortunate to keep our state open a lot longer than many other cities. With that, I will tell you, our chamber has had so many phone calls with economic opportunities. You're going to hear some of the stories down the road after this is done and gone. Companies that are looking to go to a state that may say, you know what, I want to see where somebody's going to put business first and not have that shut down so soon, because the devastation, of course, is, as H has shared, and we can't even understand where the end of that is. If I put this in an H term for a minute, I'll think about it as prohibition, okay? There's no serving of alcohol. And the hope is that the day that prohibition is over, the spigot spikes and the flow goes. But I don't see that happening. I think as the government regulations came and slowly shut things down and kind of went across a wave of the US, we're going to see the same return the other way, which could mean that they're going to allow gatherings of 25 or maybe 50, maybe get to 100. And to Ted's example of trade shows, what if they stopped at 500 until there was something to be able to have this go away? You know, you've got a lot of changes that could be in the foreseeable future that we're just not ready to adjust to. So in being involved with these businesses and dealing with what's going on, I realize I'm fortunate to have recurring revenue, but I'm intimately involved with so many of them to be able to help them get the relationships and the connections to help them find a way and a solution to get to the other side of this.
Yeah, and before we get to Tom, it's very important, and John's right, he is fortunate in a lot of areas, but John, you're also extremely proactive, and we talk about that with business owners, because you having your continuation plan, your disaster continuation plan, and you having that in February, being fortunate is one thing, but being actively fortunate and having the ability and having the liquidity to purchase and procure your hardware in advance, to take action on that and forecast is another big important point.
Well,
so don't miss out that.
But Lee, here's the thing. Everybody that's listening and watching, right? When they go through this, they're going to be prepared for another day, whether it's look, I dealt with builders so much when the last economy flop happened, right? I had about 40 to 50 custom high-end builders. Take a guess out there, how many of them survived? One. Yeah. Only one survived. So how do you take this moment and find the good? You know, like as an entrepreneur, to me, it's when determination outpaces fear. What am I going to be thinking today? As an H has to think, guess what? I'm going to have a reopening down the road. All my inventory is gone. My place is, you know, my employees are gone. What am I going to do to rebuild my work staff, my workforce, my inventory so that I have that new opening? And that planning begins right now with dialogues like these. So it's folks like the 5 of us business folks that are on here that are always thinking and preparing down the road, so that we've got to think not every day is going to be perfect. And how am I going to be ready to endure that with my team and the financial part?
Now, speaking of a team, you have 225 strong, Tom. You said, what the heck are you doing? You're at people's homes. You have to go to their homes to do the work. What has happened in your world, Tom?
Well, it's business has been, you know, changed a good bit. You know, we don't have reoccurring revenue, and unfortunately, I hate it for H, but we are considered an essential business. So we have been able to continue to keep our doors open, but we're doing things radically different in many, many areas. I mean, with us, it's all about how many leads we get coming in, and then how much work we get in the ground. And then there are all kinds of numbers and conversions from leads all the way down to a sold job and installed. But one of the first things we did, especially with 225 families that we're responsible for, was being totally transparent with everybody as soon as we knew we had an issue here nationwide and globally. You know, they're scared. They're watching the media. Unfortunately, I think the media has done a good job at really hyping this whole situation, and it's panicking a lot of people. So we wanted to keep calm. So we've been very transparent talking with our people. We were fortunate prior to this to make sure, because I went through the downturn in 08 also and almost lost my business. So one of the things that we've been able to do is become totally debt-free. With the exception of our building, everything is paid for. So I'm not saddled with debt. So that's at least helped me breathe a little easier. With us, it's about advertising, though, and we spend millions on advertising to get our phone to ring. So, you know, there might be a knee-jerk reaction to cut your advertising. Well, you know, we'd be cutting off our legs if we did that. So we reduced our advertising. A lot of our media partners have worked really well with us, and we appreciate that. A lot of them have maintained the schedule and given us a discount or really worked with us. So although we've reduced our advertising, we definitely have not stopped it, because we can't come out the other end of this, you know, at zero. So we're continuing to advertise, and believe it or not, people are still having us in their homes. We're practicing all the CDC protocols. Many of our people that are in the office are working from home. Anybody who called in that said they were sick, they're home for 2 weeks minimum. So we're a healthy group of people. We have realized that we do have to do things differently. Although customers are having us in their homes, we're obviously observing social distancing. Some don't want to talk, you know, personally to us. So we're running our appointments, and then we're doing a virtual appointment with them, just like we're sitting down with them at the kitchen table, only our sales rep is at their house and the customer is at their house. We've also offered some things that we've never offered before right now in an effort to try to help people get through this, because let's face it, in our business, the home is their biggest investment. So they're showing us, especially through this pandemic, that they are still concerned about their home, or we still wouldn't be getting phone calls. People wouldn't be letting us in their home to assess their problem or to fix it. So we're doing a lot of things to accommodate our customers. And we also have a never before, we're offering 2 years interest-free financing so people can focus on what's important today and spend a couple of years to pay it off if that works best for them.
Are you offering loans for the bank, the DiGregorio bank, that we can all borrow from?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Do they get to shoot a commercial with Tom for free or something like that, or anything?
No, they don't. But other things we're still doing is we're still hiring. We were hiring before this pandemic, and we just can't stop. So we're hiring, we're being careful, we're doing a lot of virtual interviews, but we're still doing that. We've dropped the amount of revenue we're doing back to just our break even. And most business owners know what that is. We've got to preserve our backlog. In our business, we have a backlog that could be of 6 to 10 weeks of work. That's kind of our future deposits. So I have to protect that. So if I just eat that up without sales coming in, then I've got nothing left. So we're balancing that very carefully. We're tracking every single number you can. That's just kind of who we are. We're a numbers-driven company. And we are dropped our revenue down to our break-even point. So we're slowing things down, but we're keeping things going. We're paying the bills, and we're tracking every single number we can, especially the important ones like how many leads are we getting? How many appointments are we making every day, every week? How many doors are we knocking on? How many customers are canceling those appointments? How many sales we're getting every day? How much we're installing every day, and very importantly, how many cancellations of our customers, of our jobs, people saying, I don't want you to come to our house to fix it now. Most of them are allowing us in their homes. Some of them are pushing them out a month or so, and believe it or not, very few are canceling altogether.
I wanted to do a quick go around in here as we and shift gears a little bit. And I'll start with John. You've had such a successful business, and in times like this, and I'm sure all of you are dealing with this differently. What do you think is the number one thing you've tried to do as an owner to retain employees and still keep them engaged from a morale perspective as they've had to go through all this? And like Tom was saying, they're hearing all this stuff on the news, and a lot of employees are working remote. How do you still keep your culture? Because you've all built great cultures in your business while this happens.
Tom just nailed that, really. It's really about the transparency and communication. So from very early on, and even later, I started to actually do talks with some folks, just using the intercom on my phone system, saying, okay, let's talk. And this is early on social distancing. So I think Tom touched it. That transparency, communication, and care. I had to beg 3 employees very early on that are more on the high risk as to what we were learning from CDC and media discussions, to beg them to go home. Let us set you up from home. You're not going to miss any pay. And today they're so grateful. They felt uncomfortable that they were leaving the team and stepping off the ship or something. But and I think when you see that you're going to take care of each other, look, we're a family. Every one of our businesses, from H's business, all 5 of us, that's a family unit, just like your home family. And you want to care and look after them. Tom said it so well too. It's like they're not feeling well. Let them go home. We got you covered. We need you healthy. We need you back when the time's right.
So H, what are you doing out there? At your location, you mentioned that you're doing the deliveries. You're the guy that lives a half a block down the street, but you built an environment. It isn't just the quality mixology that you do. It's also your team that your customers have come to love. How have you kept them around, and how do you stay in connect with them to keep that culture?
Well, right off the bat, my people lost their job, basically. I mean, I told them that, they're not fired, but I can't pay them and they have no other income. So one of the first things that I did was try to get every effort that I could in front of them to show them where else they could find money. So first thing, file for unemployment, get as much money, government money as you can. And then a lot of other things started popping up. Many years ago, in the early days when we only had 3 chapters of the United States Bartenders Guild, I was the vice president of the San Francisco Guild, and one of our friends and bartenders, Tony DiVincenzi, had a car accident and got hit in the head, and he was a bartender with no health insurance. And so a few of us rallied and we started something called the Bartender Relief Fund. And this was after a string of things that happened to people. Brooke Arthur had a fire. All these different people had these different things that happened to them. We said, bartenders are always left in the back with nothing. They don't have health insurance. They've got nothing to fall on. So we tried to start this. We started a nonprofit. At the same time, the Bartenders Guild was getting organized in another way. And eventually that led to the formation of a foundation and what's now called the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program. And you can see in the press that the big spirit companies, a lot of people have been dumping millions into it in the last few weeks. And now we have this program where bartenders can apply to that to get assistance to help pay their bills. And that's something that I'm really proud of being a part of in the beginning and working towards now. So it's stuff like that. We had to get that out to them. But more on the level of kind of keeping my team together. We just did one of these kind of group calls yesterday where I got to connect with everybody face to face. I was reaching out to individual people. I was trying to get them engaged in what I was doing, letting them know regularly, daily communication, letting them know all the different things I was doing to try to save the business and keep things moving forward and try to set it up so everybody can get back.
So you've talked to your team in detail about when this tide turns and when we move forward, you're going to bring them back on and have you kept them engaged? Is that what you were saying you were just doing?
Yeah, as much as possible. You know, like we said earlier, the turnarounds, it's not going to be like the end of Prohibition when all of a sudden we can just serve and everybody's going to be back out because people are going to be afraid to come back out. And, you know, we'll be at reduced hours. We were open 365, you know, same hours every day. I've always been, you have to close at 2 a.m. in California. And I've always been a staunch, you know, we're open till 2 a.m. I don't care if the bar is empty from 12 to 2. We're open till 2. You arrive from a flight at 1 o'clock and you want a drink before you come home. You can go to Elixir, get a drink. So we may have to change some of those things. We may have to be open, maybe not 7 days a week, maybe not all those hours, and hours come back. And if those hours don't come back, those tips don't come back. So, you know, looking at how long this thing is going to be projected, I don't know how many of those people are going to want to come back to work because they may have to move on and go do some other stuff. And I know some people are driving for some of these delivery services, and everybody's got to do what they've got to do. I'm going to do what I can do to bring them back. But if they have to move on by the time that happens, then I'll totally understand that.
Ted, before your question for Tom, I'll tell you guys, you heard it here in the Shrimp Tank. Let's create a mask that you can still drink through.
Okay.
So his bar could be full of people with masks. It shouldn't hold up anything. That could be the Prohibition ending. A mask that you can still imbibe.
Lee, you want to call this thing the Nas 5 mask as opposed to the N95 mask, or what?
I like it. I'm just thinking about that. That's the quickest and easiest way. Go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
It's going to look like something out of Star Wars, a little straw and sticking out of it, and masks are going to get funky and fashionable.
I appreciate what Abe said here, which is that, you know, clearly we don't even know what the new norm will look like after this. There's certainly going to be some sort of new norm, but Tom, I want to go back to what you talked about because I hired a couple of people in my business this week and people are hearing horror stories all over the place. But at the same token, won't this be one of the greatest windows in the opportunity of America to find talent, that there are going to be talented people in the millions that don't have jobs? We're talented. Maybe they decide they don't want to be in the industry they're at anymore. And for business owners that have the money, the willpower, the know-how, isn't it going to be a great time to hire people?
Absolutely. I mean, before we really got knee deep in this whole pandemic and the social distancing and all of that, we were hiring in, and and there were a lot of people that were home, especially early when you know they called only essential businesses could work. So we were getting a lot of people home, and a lot of response. You know, one of the other things we're experiencing with everybody home, our appointment center is reaching more people than they ever have in an hour than ever in our history. It's amazing. They can't believe it. Everybody's answering the phone. So that's been great. We've learned a lot through this whole situation. We've learned and created a lot of efficiencies. In fact, a lot of which we're going to probably keep after this thing is all over, just because of what some of the things we've learned. and that's been kind of neat.
That's one of the things that I'm looking at too. Is everything that I'm putting an effort into is with an eye towards what's going to be sustainable. I don't want to invest my time and energy and the little bit of capital that I have right now on something that's just going to go away. The delivery business is probably going to go away because it's doubtful that the ABC is going to allow us to continue doing that and is going to change all of the ABC laws. But everything else that I'm working on right now is all about what's going to be sustainable. How can I create new revenue streams that will be able to go on and make the business better afterwards?
And John, what would you do?
Sorry,
no, it's great, H. And I have a question for you after John. But John, what are the things that you and your team are noticing that you think you might maintain to some extent, like Tom said, in terms of, as he said, the efficiencies that he's finding out? What are the things you might remove and the things you might keep?
Well, one thing is in our industry, we've all got to change out all the cellular communication devices and communication paths for alarm systems, residential and commercial. So we know we have about 5,000 we have to change between now and the end of next year. So as Tom said, guess what? There's a lot of people home right now, and there's a lot of businesses that have availability to let us get in there if they're open. Even if they're not open, they probably could actually meet you over there. Although, as Tom shared earlier too, not every homeowner is willing to let you go visit them. They don't want to see people. But part of the purchase thing we did, we went and bought about 800 of the cellular device units to be able to say, we've got to start this program and get it started, and we can't stop until the end of 21. You can't wait 3 months out and say, I'm going to make 5,000 visits. So that's certainly one. I don't know from the work at home standpoint that would be something. It's just like, look, if you remember back up 10, 20 years ago, video conferencing was everywhere, just like we're all doing that. But at the end of the day, people like to do business with who they know, they like, they trust. It's just like when they come to H's bar and interact with him and his staff, they like them, they feel welcome, they're coming back. When Tom's team goes out and interacts with them at the home, just like for our business, residential and commercial, you establish that relationship. So I don't know in any of the three of our businesses, that's one of those. Sure, some others may be along that path, but not in our sense.
Yeah, John, I concur with you. I'll speak to myself. We're a technology firm, so remote working is very simple for us as we support all of our businesses as well as our own company. But the lack of having everybody together is slightly demoralizing. And we do a company video chat and then a breakdown video chat. And it's an exhausting, arduous process because we're having to work extra hard to keep that emotional connection together with your team. Whereas if you're just in an office with people, it just comes naturally. So I don't think there's any substitute for being in person. So I concur with you.
Culture is king, right? It's like the culture of an environment is far more valuable than even somebody's pay in many cases.
100% agree. 100%. And that's what your environment, H, to that point, you have that product, Fresh Victor. Is that correct? When is your next step? What is your launch to do that? I mean, that is a product you could sell, I guess, now, but what is your plan with that?
Well, it's interesting because we launched Fresh Victor as a consumer product. And in 2018, we shifted to being an on-premise or bar and restaurant B2B play. Because before when we were a consumer product, we were selling 32 ounces at a time to one customer at a time. And now we're selling gallon cases to Disney Epcot Center and MGM resorts. And we're doing pallets of our mixers to high-end or high-volume clients. All of a sudden, that just dried up, just like the bar business. All of a sudden, Disney is not Disneying and Vegas. So,
I like that. Yes.
We're not getting that kind of volume. So we made a really quick pivot in this. And, it's interesting because it's related to my bar business, but it's a product company. It's CPG. It's a completely different world. And so within that, we had already been planning our relaunch of our consumer product, but this just put it into hyperdrive and to the point where we have 9 products now, and we're putting out our 16-ounce package. We've got 4 flavors coming to market within the next 2 weeks. We've gotten a supermarket chain here in the Bay Area called Draeger's, where we used to do very well. They were very excited to get us back, so we're launching with Draeger's. We're negotiating with Good Eggs. We're negotiating with Bevmo. I'm working on a partnership with some spirit companies to be able to put our stuff together. And I'm packaging through my Elixir delivery service. I've packaged our Fresh Victor 64-ounce jugs with a bottle. So a 64-ounce jug of Fresh Victor with a liter of spirit. And you've got 20 to 22 cocktails that will last you for some people a week or two, for some people a day or two.
For John, a day or two. Absolutely.
But so that's been our big pivot is we're now all of a sudden with everything, make it at home, make it to go, whether you're making cocktails to go one at a time out of your restaurant, or you're staying home and you want delivery from Drizzly or something like that. And we're completely changed our entire strategy to the point where we're now going B2C. And when we come out of the back end of this, we're probably going to be looking at having 2 different channels. That it's going to be an accelerated version of our business plan. To now we're going to go back. We're going to go back to servicing Disney, and we're going to go. Suddenly, we're going to be able to get that 16 ounce into somebody's hand, and I think it's hopefully going to accelerate our growth. And we're moving out of seed financing right now, going into Series A, or we're hoping to, and hopefully that's going to stimulate investment. And so it's exciting to be part of that on that side. It's a completely different business from the. I got to plug my laptop in. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, H, we also want to say hello to your better half who snuck in the door behind you, which is quite funny. And what I do love, Ted,
she's not doing it.
That's all right. That's all right. If you're listening out there and watching this, what's so intriguing is, I see many people curl up in a ball when this pandemic hit, and they get paralyzed by fear. And when we surround ourselves with leaders like H and John and Tom and you, Ted, you notice most of this conversation is about what we're doing now to fix it and where we're going in the future. So that whole flavor is huge, because that's why I surround myself with these smart guys. Ted, before you wrap up on your final question, I wanted to lean on John, because John is extremely, as we talked, John, you're highly connected at the Chamber as you run the Cobb Chamber, and you're highly connected with the Atlanta Braves. And, a bigger picture here is the flavor of the country. You go open up the news, as we talked about, and the majority of it is extremely depressing and fear-driven. But there is some positive stuff coming out. And John had just had a call today with the president of the Braves, and they're talking about what they're doing with Major League Baseball and how that will be opening. Because imagine being able to put TV on in the next few weeks and actually watch baseball games. Normalcy would feel good. So, John, if you could take a minute and share your conversation with the president of the Braves and how you're intimate with them and what they're planning on doing this year.
I guess, so the Atlanta Braves are located in Cobb County. They're still in Atlanta. It's part of Atlanta comes into Cobb. So we were actually talking about an event that we want to host there in June with a very national speaker, and talking about, hey, let's take some of these sections, put people 3 and 4 seats apart, set this up for Monday, June the 8th, and start to think forward, think about that opening.
So you're going to put people in separated seats using the stadium as a venue to make them feel safer?
Yes. Well, because as I said earlier, it's not that prohibition where, hey, the spigot's on, everybody gets to show up. Realizing that if the United States is ready to start to have gatherings somewhere in May, it may be that only 50 people can gather, 100 people can gather. We typically at the Cobb Chamber would have 600 to 700 people at a breakfast gathering.
Yep.
So when you have that, we want to still take these type of quality speakers to deliver the content to them. But now we got to think about what's that venue going to look like. So for me, having the relationships with the Braves organization to say, hey, you have not had some things. If you guys are still out in Arizona, and we're about to start to bring you guys back to the hometown, and you guys are playing baseball with no fans there yet, would there be a possibility? And as it looks right now, I think we probably have an ideal perfect match.
John, that's a great idea. Did you come up with that?
Oh, of course. No, a good friend of mine, Lee Heisman, probably, I think. He's paid me $20 to say that.
It's very true. Very true.
But
I wanted to ask you guys in a quick go-around here. We're hearing from business owners all over the country who've applied at banks, and there's like a big wait at some banks, and others seem to be getting money. Do you think this whole Paycheck Protection Program, shit show, not a shit show?
Well, I mean, all I know is we had the application filled out, and then it was a different application. It was a different application. We finally got it in on Friday. We're waiting to hear of our approval. There are some, I do know of a friend of mine in the same business in Connecticut applied on Friday, and he got approval on Monday. So, I mean, we're going to certainly take advantage of it. We have implemented a 20% pay cut for our salaried people. That's going to immediately be, put back to normal. So we're hoping to take full advantage of this and utilize it like the government wants us to. And I'll take the grant every day of the week if they want to give it to us.
John?
I think it's going to be something absolutely fantastic. Look, I think every American out there is living in 2 tunnels, and those 2 tunnels, one is They're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel financially, both personally as well as in a business aspect. So am I going to get a glimmer of light? And I think this thing is about a week to 2 weeks away from dealing with the reality of starting to get folks to receive the paychecks, whether it's the unemployment checks or it's the $1,200 plus the $500. They start to see a little bit of that. They're going to be like, you know what, I'm okay. As these businesses and banks get to digest the rest of the magnitude of the PPP program, and knowing that the money is not going to run out and they're going to bring another truck full of money in from the federal environment, to know that these small businesses, it's not a sprint. You know, you got to pace yourself, let the system settle down a little bit. And there's, you know, I've heard that it's not just PPP, it's PPPP. And the last new P is about patience, because the process and the definition about what is going to be forgiven or not, there's some bankers saying you don't want to sign anything yet because we don't even understand the forgiveness of what is going to be fully in there. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a huge hit, home run, that folks are going to be able to stabilize and be propped back up to be able to say, I can get to my new doors opening. I can see that light at the end of the tunnel. The other one is the health, okay? And everybody's on a different schedule, whether New York's 2 weeks ahead of Georgia or California's, where are they in the whole thing? I think for Georgia, we're probably about 2 to 3 weeks away, hopefully being able to see that that's the peak and we're starting to slide down the other side, that people can say, you know what, I'm going to be okay health-wise. I'm going to live. So am I financially going to be okay? And am I going to survive? And that's the folks that are sitting there teetering.
And John, real quick, just for our listeners, we were fortunate last week to have a show with a specialist that spoke about the PPP. And a nugget that I gathered from that, and again, I'm not stating this to be law, but if you maintain your current staff, if you've received your 2.5 times your monthly payroll, and you maintain that staff until June, which is the 2.5 month mark, that is the forgivable component. Now, I'm not going to, sign off on that and proclaim that, but that's the point of it, is for you to be able to continue to pay your staff.
You're almost on the mark. What it is, it's from the day that you start to receive the funds, it's 8 weeks. It ends on June 30th. So if you got funded today, it's 8 weeks from today, which ends prior to June 30th. So that's where you've got to be thinking about, okay, the day the money hits the bank account, what do I get to do? The concern becomes, if we're still not out doing events in May or out and doing events in June, do they end up adding another 4 weeks? So the rest of the game's not played. But
and they've been very liquid, and I think it would change if that was the case. But
I agree.
Bottom line is, if you're getting your PPP disbursement, keep your staff around. Yeah, that's the whole point of it.
Exactly. And talking to our congressional staff, this is not the end of it. There's other plans already in the queue, significant more dollars, that if things go on. So don't run frantic and scared. You know what? There's more coming. Stand by. I know we all want the magic wand and have this go away tomorrow. Let's get H's shop open again. Let's get normalcy back to things. But we need people to live also.
H, what have you seen in San Francisco? Same thing? Has it been crazy with local owners and the PPP?
Oh yeah, we have a local San Francisco bar owners Facebook group, which has been an amazing asset to all of us to be able to share information, and we're all basically, everybody's saying the same thing. Like, we log on each day and people are like, did you get it? Did anything show up in your bank account today? And no. And we're all sharing information as to which bank is good and which bank sucks and which bank's, not responsive, and they all pretty much suck, but they, it's a shit show. That's the best way to describe it. And, I think I posted something earlier on Facebook today about Nancy. I copied Speaker Pelosi and said, it's day 10 since I applied. There's no money in my account. What's going on? And then somebody was like, why is it the speaker's fault? And I said, I don't care about her being the speaker. She's my representative in Congress. I'm her constituent. I'm just letting her know as my congressperson that this is not working. And the question came back like, is the question more that the SBA is not working? I said, this is, of course it's not working, because Congress shoved this thing through. The SBA wasn't prepared for it. The execution is not going to be smooth. It's not like this is a well-oiled machine and this has happened before. So you can only expect that it's going to take this long for the money to get out and for anything to actually happen. And
wanted to ask you guys, because I want to honor everyone's time tonight, and this is a great dialogue, man. This is exactly what we want to do in these Wednesday night fireside chats. Just a quick go around, and Lee will include you and me in this as well after the guys talk, which is what's one piece of advice you might give to any business owner now, and they're thinking about, we don't even know what the next 3 months will look like, but you know that you've worked your ass off to build your business and you care about your community and your employees and everything going on. What's one piece of advice you give somebody out there if they're struggling or they're just trying to manage through all this chaos?
Well, I'll start, I guess. Listen, we're in uncharted territory. Nobody's been here before. So we have just been operating with our high beams on, eyes wide open, and learning all we can through this and staying totally connected with our people. And as I said, there's a lot of things that we're going to take and hold on to and utilize when we get through all of this. So take care of your people, hold on, learn all you can, because this is, we're going to get through this, and I guess you just got to keep a watchful eye on every single thing you're doing, and obviously your people are everything for you. So make sure you take care of them the best you can, learn all you can, and just hold on.
Ted, let me add in this. So look, I was a flight attendant with Delta Airlines for 6 years before I ever started a company. I'd never been in the security business, didn't know how any of it worked. And one of the things that got me 25 years later is all about R&D. So I'm not talking research and development. In my world, it's a lot about rip off and duplicate, where you get to listen and learn from others, which is why you have your listeners and your viewers today coming to say, okay, how are these 5 businesses and professionals dealing with it? My one takeaway would be, you've got to turn to your local association, whether it's a business association, your industry association, your chamber of commerce. Look, I'm an independent business guy. I just happen to be the chairman of a chamber of commerce this year. But I tell you, sitting in that seat this year, watching the resources. Remember, everybody's got unique challenges, but many of them are so similar. But the resources that come to your local association or chamber or business entity, whether it's the government side, the bank side, the CPA side, the attorney side, the human resource side, tap into that resource. Somebody's going through the same thing. And I'm not talking, I'm with you on the chat group, but when you've got a bunch of folks kind of trial and error and things, whereas the community business groups are going to get answers from the leaders and can pick up those phone calls to get a response right away. And it may not be the response you want. It may be that bank's going to still take 2 days or 3 days to even get back with you, to be able to even apply. Or it may be that, the tough part is we've never seen unemployment just zoom like we've seen going on. So our unemployment in Georgia, the amount of claims that at the most they would get 5,000 in a particular week back in 2008, was well over 250,000 in the same week. So systems aren't designed to say, okay, we can do it. So remember that other P, the patience. We've got to have some of that in there, but those entities and organizations will be able to guide you to the right professionals to give you the key insight so you can have some peace of mind at the same time to know that, okay, you know what, I'm going to get there.
H?
I think to build on the communicating with your staff is really important, but communicating with customers too, communicating, just making sure that you're out there and people know that you're still alive and you're out there working for solutions. I think you, as an owner, you have to breathe. You have to get up, and you have to have a sense of alert decision making. You have to be strategic and creative, and you have to come up with solutions. You can't panic. If you sit back and you panic and you worry, you're not going to get anything done. And that's not what a leader does. A leader has to step forward and create new solutions. Think, the incredible phrase of outside the box. You got to be outside the box. You got to think about what's your next step, but you also have to look at the mid and long term and think, what am I doing now in order to make sure that in 3, 6, 9 months, I'm going to be good, as well as a year or two from now. And
We might have lost him at the end.
That's all right. Ted, I'll be brief with it. And,
I never heard you brief, man, ever.
It's a good point. But I think you guys have heard this before. I tend to be visual. So you guys know archery, and you've seen an archery bullseye. You have the very big outside and the small little center. And I've always said this in times of challenges. The little tiny center part is your sphere of influence. It's the things you can influence and control. then that big outer part of the things you can't control. So if you spend all day watching the news and getting concerned and stressed out about all these variables and factors that you cannot control, I think you as an entrepreneur, a business owner, an employee, husband, wife, spouse, child, whoever's listening, don't live in that world that you can't control. Live and focus on the world that you actually have influence over. And as you said, Tom, your customers, your clients, and I also want to turn back your spouses, your significant others, whoever you're stuck in the house with, you have a responsibility to obviously ease the stress that's going on. So focus on that smaller circle. Don't worry about the stuff you can't control.
Yeah,
what's that, Tom?
I said that's a great point, and just to kind of
Tom, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
That's a great point to double down.
louder.
Is really control the controllables, and if you, as an entrepreneur, if you look at every single thing you have control over and control it, the rest you just gotta you don't have control over, so you can't really worry about it. And remember, as the owner of the company, everybody's looking at you. So if you're freaked out, they're going to be freaked out. So you've got to exude total confidence, even if you don't feel it, because they're counting on the leader to be there and to have the answers and to make things okay. And that's all how you wear it on your face, how you talk, when you talk, and how often you talk to them. So just remember the impact we have on our people is critical.
Well, and I just wanted to wrap up here and tell everyone watching the broadcast tonight for the Shrimp Tank, you can always go to shrimptankpodcast.com where you can see a replay of this if you came in the middle to hear from our amazing owners of companies, leaders in the community. Just remember, if you can now, shop local. For what all the guys said on here tonight, surround yourself with strength. You have local business owners that are just like you in different businesses or the same businesses dealing with the same issues you're dealing with every day. Don't be a hero. Talk to them. We put our arms around each other right now. Many of our businesses will not only survive, but they will be much, much better off in the future. I want to thank you all for joining the broadcast tonight. Most importantly, not only being leaders in your businesses and really being a spirit for your employees to show them that there's going to be light at the end of this tunnel, like John said, but being leaders in the community. Our communities all need us right now. In all of our cities here in Atlanta and San Francisco, they're great cities with great businesses. And we know that this wasn't a financial issue that just got caused by financial issues we've seen in the past. We had an unprecedented health issue that's created this financial crisis. And we will all get through this. And I appreciate all of your leadership. I thank you all for watching the broadcast tonight. Lee and I will be back next Wednesday with our little Teddy Roosevelt's Fireside Chats. Hope to bring you some positive spirit and inspiration on a Wednesday night. And you're all going to do well. Just stay focused on what you're doing. Surround yourself with strength. Be members in your community. Shop local. Do all those things. We'll all be well. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys, for being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp